The morning everything cracked open started with my daughter standing on my porch, wearing the kind of smirk she saved for moments when she believed she had finally put me in my place. I was still in my robe, hair pinned back loosely, when I opened the door and saw Cambria Harrow Lowell shifting her weight like she owned the ground beneath us. "Well," she said, arms folded, "are you ready to be reasonable today, Mom?" Her tone held the same condescension she had learned from Diana Lowell, her new mother-in-law, the woman she had begged me to apologize to. Cambria glanced past me into my small Charleston living room as if she were checking for an audience. Before I could answer, footsteps slapped against the walkway. Marcy Dell, the wedding coordinator from Magnolia Wharf Estate, ran toward us, breath jagged, face bleached of color. She held a sheet of paper so tightly it shook in her hands. "Mrs. Harrow, please," she panted. "Tell me you did not sign this." Cambria's smirk snapped in half. "What is that?" she asked sharply. Marcy thrust the notice forward, and even from the doorway, I saw the bolded words: "Contract termination. Cancellation approved." My own signature printed cleanly at the bottom, and beside it, in smaller lettering, sat Diana Lowell's name as a responsible financial party. Cambria snatched the paper. The shift in her face was immediate, a sharp drop from confidence into panic. "Mom, what did you do?" she demanded. I did not answer. I simply lifted one eyebrow, the way my mother used to when silence spoke louder than any argument. Marcy swallowed hard. "The penalties are significant. They will lose their booking privileges across multiple venues. There are damages, fees, and breach reports. The estate legal team is already calling." Cambria spun toward me, voice rising. "You cannot be serious. You think you can just—" Her words tangled at the edge of her breath. 12 hours earlier," I said softly, "you should have thought about the door you locked." And just like that, the memory pulled me backward, into the night. Everything began to shift. Magnolia Wharf Estate buzzed with soft voices and hurried footsteps when I arrived. Long before the guests. The place was already dressed in white hydrangeas and trimmed garlands, but I barely noticed any of it. My focus stayed on getting through the morning without becoming a problem for anyone, mostly for my daughter. Cambria brushed past me the moment she spotted me. Her eyes flicked over my dress, then away, as if looking too long might draw attention to something she did not want to claim. "You need to fix your corsage," she said quickly. "Come with me." Diana Lowell waited near the doorway, arms crossed, expression carved from stone. "It looks crooked," she added, though she never looked closely enough to know. I followed them down a side hallway, the hum of distant chatter fading with each step. Cambria opened a small service room lined with linens and floral bins. "Just a second, Mom. Step inside so I can see the pin in better light." I obeyed. Old habits die quiet deaths. The door slammed before I even turned. The click of the lock shot straight through me. "Cambria," I said, pressing my palm to the wood, "what do you think you're doing?" Her voice came sharp and cold. "You do not get out until you apologize to my mother-in-law." Diana's tone slid in like ice. "We cannot have you ruining the photographs today." Something hot surged up my throat. "I did nothing to ruin anything. You raised your voice at rehearsal." Cambria snapped. "You embarrassed me in front of her. Just own it and we can move on." I leaned my forehead against the door, breath tightening. The room felt smaller by the second. The scent of boxed flowers crowded the air. And for a moment, I was 8 years old again, stuck in a supply closet by cousins who thought it was funny. I pressed both hands to the shelves beside me and forced myself still. A long minute passed. Then another, and somewhere between the fading panic and the steady rise of something older, something sturdier, my chest loosened. My voice came out steady. "All right, I doubt they heard the difference in the way I said it. The door creaked open only after the hallway went quiet. A young staff member peeked in, eyes darting nervously. "Mrs. Harrow," she whispered. I should not." "But you should not be in here." She slipped a small key out of her pocket, unlocked the door, and stepped back quickly as if afraid someone might see her helping me. I steadied myself. "Thank you," I said, and she nodded once before hurrying away. Voices echoed faintly from the courtyard, music tuning, guests arriving, Diana greeting people as though she owned the estate. I stood in the corridor for a moment, hands still cold from the room, and waited for the familiar urge to smooth everything over, to walk out there and pretend nothing had happened. It never came. When Cambria's voice drifted in from the main hall, directing photographers and telling someone to dim the lights, I turned toward the exit instead. I passed the open doors of the ceremony space without slowing. No one noticed me leave. Outside, the air felt heavier than usual, warm against my skin as I walked down the long path toward the Charleston waterfront. A few vendors glanced at me, but said nothing. The wedding bustle faded behind me with every step. Memories pushed their way in Cambria at 6 years old, clinging to my hand because the other children had prettier dresses. Cambria at 17, leaving home in tears after Diana's first invitation to her family's mansion. Cambria at 33, telling me she wanted a wedding that proved something. I had worked extra hours, saved every spare dollar, and taken on responsibilities no one ever saw, just to give her the things she believed would finally make her enough for people like Diana. By the time I reached my front door, my legs ached, but my head felt strangely clear. I sat at my dining table, the same one where I had once braided Cambria's hair for school. This time, I whispered into the quiet room. She locked the wrong woman in. I stood in my kitchen long enough for the quiet to thicken, then walked to the old sideboard I had kept since Cambria was a child. The second drawer stuck the way it always had, but I pulled harder until it gave way. Inside lay the neatly stacked envelopes and folders I had collected over months, contracts, receipts, and transfer confirmations I had never shown anyone. I set everything on the table and opened the largest folder. The first receipt sat on top, dated nearly a year earlier. I remembered the day clearly. Cambria calling me from her car, voice trembling with excitement about how Magnolia Wharf Estate was the only venue that makes sense. She had sounded so sure, so proud, and I had said yes before she even finished explaining the price. I traced the ink of the bank transfer with my thumb. 40%. I whispered. My share, paid in full, including the non-refundable deposit worth more than many people's yearly savings. Another document caught my eye. A clause highlighted in blue ink: any cosigner may revoke within 24 hours of a safety breach. My stomach tightened. Being locked inside a room counted. I had been treated not as a guest, not as a mother, but as an obstacle. Diana's voice still echoed in my mind, sharp, dismissive, certain her place in that family outranked mine. I picked up my phone and scrolled until I found a number I had not dialed in years. Lorraine Keyes answered after the second ring. "Eve, you all right?" I sat straighter. "I need you to listen," I said. And I told her everything: the lock, the humiliation, the contract, the clause. When I finished, there was a long breath on her end. Then her voice came steady and sure. "Yes, Eve, you can cancel the entire event, legally and cleanly." My fingers loosened around the phone. For the first time since the door clicked shut behind me, my hands stopped trembling. The house felt heavier after nightfall, but not in a way that pressed on me. It was the kind of weight that comes from a decision settling into place. I gathered the folder, opened my laptop, and logged into Magnolia Wharf's client portal with the same login Cambria had once begged me to set up. just in case. The dashboard loaded slowly. My reflection hovered faintly on the dark screen until the forms appeared: contracts, invoices, a button labeled Event Management. I clicked it and scrolled to the bottom where the cancellation form waited, untouched. Lorraine had told me exactly what to write. Reason for revocation: safety violation. False imprisonment of a signatory by associated event parties. The words looked strange, almost clinical, but they were true. As I typed, my fingers no longer shook. Every letter felt like a stitch pulling me back together. The box at the bottom required a digital signature. I clicked inside and typed my full name, Evelyn May Harrow. The timestamp appeared immediately, 11:49 at night. 11 minutes to spare. A small notification flashed at the top. Printed confirmation will be generated at the venue office. Somewhere across the city, a machine was already humming to life, pushing out the page that would shift everything by morning. My phone buzzed on the table. Lorraine again. Did you submit it? She asked. It is done. I said, good. They left you no choice. Her voice softened. You followed every rule. They cannot twist this. I closed the folder and exhaled, a slow breath that seemed to come from a deeper place than my lungs. The contract window still glowed on the screen, the confirmation message blinking as if waiting for regret. There was none. I clicked out of the portal, shut the laptop, and rested my hands on its closed cover. The house around me was quiet, steady, holding its breath for whatever would come with the sunrise. The night did not feel heavy anymore. It felt ready. Cambria showed up at my door just after 8, wearing the same smug expression she used whenever she believed she had outgrown me. Her hair was still pinned from the night before, and she held her phone like she was waiting to receive another compliment about her perfect wedding. So, she said, stepping inside without being asked. Have you calmed down yet? I closed the door behind her. She didn't notice the way my jaw tightened. She waved a dismissive hand. Look, Mom! Yesterday got dramatic, but everything turned out fine. The reception was perfect. Diana's friends would not stop saying how elegant the whole thing was. She laughed lightly. They even said you leaving early was a blessing. Less tension. You know, I leaned against the back of a chair, keeping my face still. And honestly, she went on, if you just apologize to Diana now, we can smooth all this over. She told everyone you were emotional because you were overwhelmed. I defended you. Of course. Her version of defending me had always meant reshaping me into something convenient for her. I kept my hands folded, saying nothing. Silence unnerved her more than anger ever had. Mom! Seriously, Cambria said, her voice sharpening. This is not complicated. Just say you're sorry, and we can… A frantic pounding jolted her mid-sentence. Heavy footsteps scraped against my porch. Cambria frowned and turned toward the sound. Marcy Dell burst onto the threshold, breathless, hair undone, clutching a sheet of paper that trembled in her hands. Mrs. Harrow, she gasped. Please tell me you did not sign this. She held the notice out, and Cambria grabbed it before I could move. Her eyes slid across the text. Contract termination. Cancellation approved. The color drained from her face so quickly, it felt like watching a candle snuff out. Her smirk didn't fade. It died. Marcy steadied herself against the doorframe, still catching her breath. The penalties are already processing, she said, voice thin. The estate marked the event as a safety breach. That means vendor blacklisting, immediate loss of the entire deposit, and a formal note added to Diana Lowell's booking record. Cambria stepped toward her. That cannot be right. My mother did not do anything that serious. Marcy shook her head. The notice was filed with evidence. Locking a signatory in a room counts as false imprisonment. Magnolia Wharf had no choice. The front door opened again, and Grant Lowell walked in as if pulled by a string. His eyes went straight to the paper in Cambria's trembling hand. What is going on? Cambria thrust the notice toward him. She did this. She snapped. My mother. She sabotaged the entire wedding because she was upset. Grant scanned the page quickly. His jaw tightened. The estate called my father. He said he wants to know why his family name is attached to a breach report. Marcy swallowed. Because Diana Lowell is listed as a co-responsible party. The contract places financial and legal accountability on both signatories. That includes her. Cambria's voice cracked. Diana did nothing wrong. Marcy lowered her gaze. She was present for the incident. That is all the contract needs. Grant turned on Cambria. You told me your mother left because she wanted attention. You never mentioned anything about locking her anywhere. Cambria's face crumpled. It was not like that. She exaggerated. I spoke for the first time since Marcy arrived. You locked me in a room so I would apologize to suit someone else's pride. Grant stared at her as if seeing someone new. Behind that silence, I could hear the distant collapse of their perfect image beginning. Cambria shook her head, pleading with him, but Grant stepped away. Their panic filled the room. I did not move. Cambria showed up at my door again just before sunset. Eyes red, makeup streaked like she had been wiping at her face since morning. She didn't wait for me to invite her in. She pushed past me and collapsed onto the nearest chair, shoulders shaking. Mom, please, she choked out. You have to fix this. They are going to ruin us. Her voice kept breaking. Caught somewhere between panic and desperation, I stood across from her, hands resting on the back of another chair, steady in a way I had never been with her before. They are calling every vendor, she continued. Grant's parents are furious. Diana says this will destroy her standing at the club and the financial penalties. She pressed her palms to her forehead. Mom, you have to undo it. I waited for the familiar ache, the instinct to soothe her. The part of me that had always stepped in to carry the weight she created, but nothing came. Only a quiet exhaustion. Cambria, I said, keeping my voice even, do you understand what you did? She lifted her head. I know locking you in that room was bad. I know, but I was overwhelmed. And Diana was pressuring me, and everyone expected the day to go perfectly. And you were... Did you ever worry about ruining me? I asked. She froze. The silence between us went thick, as if the room itself understood what she could not say. Her mouth opened, then closed again. No answer. Not even an attempt at one. My phone buzzed against the counter. A message from Diana flashed across the screen. This is entirely your fault. Fix what you broke. Evelyn. I set the phone down without responding. Cambria reached for my hand, but I stepped back just enough that her fingers met the air instead of my skin. Her breath hitched at the space between us. For once, I did not close it. Cambria left my house in a panic, and the moment the door closed behind her, the quiet settled again sharp, decisive. I picked up my phone and scrolled to the number Lorraine had given me the night before. The direct line to Magnolia Wharf's legal department. The attorney answered on the second ring. Mrs. Harrow, we received the cancellation. How can I assist? I want the safety breach reviewed formally, I said. Not reversed, escalated. There was a brief pause. You are reporting false imprisonment. I am... He asked a few clarifying questions, each one steadier than the last. When the call ended, he promised the report would be forwarded to the Charleston Coastal Venues Oversight Board within the hour. By the time I set the phone down, another call came through, this one from the board itself. A woman introduced herself, her tone brisk. We take safety violations very seriously, Mrs. Harrow. Based on the documentation you provided, we are issuing a temporary blacklist on all Lowell family event bookings until our review is complete. Understood, I said. She continued. This includes Diana Lowell's planned gala in 2 months. I could almost hear the shock she expected from me. I gave none. Later that afternoon, Lorraine forwarded an update. Diana had been removed from her philanthropic board. The group citing concerns regarding recent conduct. The official language was polite. The intention was not. Grant's parents called Cambria after that. Their message reached me through a voicemail Cambria accidentally left recording as she sobbed. "You created this mess." Grant's father told her, "You will pay every cent of the damages yourself." I did not listen to the rest. Instead, I opened the final liability release sent by Magnolia Wharf. It stated in clear, neat paragraphs that I owed nothing, no penalties, no fees, no obligation to assist in any settlement. I signed it with the same calm I had used the night I canceled their event. The moment the cursor completed my name, something inside me loosened and stayed that way. A week passed before I walked by Magnolia Wharf Estate again. Another wedding was being prepared. Workers hanging lights. A florist giving instructions. Someone laughing loudly near the gate. The sound carried easily. Bright and unburdened. For the first time, it did not sting. It felt like something happening in a world I no longer owed anything to. I paused at the far end of the walkway, watching them adjust chairs and string white ribbons along the railings. The place looked exactly as it had on Cambria's wedding day, but none of it reached me now. I felt only a clean, quiet relief. Cambria had locked me in a service room to force an apology, and she ended up locked inside a mess of her own making. I heard updates through Lorraine Grant had filed for financial separation 3 days after the breach report. His parents wanted nothing tied to the Lowell name until the investigation settled. Diana had been asked to step back indefinitely from her philanthropic board, a polite way of pushing her out. Their world bent under the weight of consequences they thought would never touch them. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a final message from Cambria. "I don't know how to fix this. Mom." I stared at the screen for a long moment before typing back, then stopped breaking things. I set the phone down and kept walking. The evening air in Charleston held a warm softness, carrying faint music from a distance. My steps felt steady, unhurried, like they finally belonged to me. I passed the estate without glancing back. I passed the street where Grant's family held their gatherings. I passed the turn that used to lead to every obligation, every apology. Every moment I folded myself smaller to keep the peace. The same door Cambria locked behind me. I leave open now, but I will not walk into their world again. If you want more stories like this of mothers who rise after being pushed down, subscribe, or leave a comment. There is always more to tell.